Inside your mind right now, there's a pathway you've never been taught to access, a channel between worlds that's been hidden from you since birth. Not hidden because you're not capable of finding it. Hidden because once you discover it, everything changes. Your perception shatters. Your limitations dissolve. And the version of reality you've been living in reveals itself as just one frequency among infinite possibilities. Ancient masters knew about this channel. They mapped it. They taught others how to navigate it. They used it to access knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere, to perceive events before they happened, to communicate across distances without technology, to heal without touching. And then that knowledge was buried, suppressed, lost to time, because a population that knows how to access the hidden channel cannot be controlled, cannot be limited, cannot be told what's possible and what's not. But here's what they couldn't destroy. The channel still exists. It's wired into your consciousness. It's been there your entire life, broadcasting information you weren't trained to receive. And right now, in this moment, you're about to learn what they never wanted you to know, that between the world you see and the world that actually exists, there's a pathway, a hidden channel, and you've always had the ability to tune into it. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will unlock something in you that's been dormant, waiting, ready to awaken the moment you understand how to access it. Chapter 1. The Channel You Forgot. There was a time when you knew about this channel. When you were a child, before the world trained it out of you, you had imaginary friends who felt more real than real. You had dreams so vivid, you weren't sure which world was the dream. You knew things you couldn't possibly know. You felt things before they happened. You saw things others couldn't see. And the adults told you it wasn't real, told you to stop making things up, told you to focus on what's actually there, on what's practical, on what everyone else agrees is true. So you closed the channel, not because it disappeared, because you learned to ignore it, to dismiss it, to label the signals it was sending as imagination, coincidence, or meaningless noise. But the channel never stopped broadcasting. You just stopped listening. The hidden channel is the space between your conscious mind and the vast intelligence that exists beyond it. It's the connection point between your limited perception and unlimited awareness. It's the pathway through which information flows from dimensions of reality you can't see with physical eyes. Every culture throughout history has had a name for it. The Hindus called it the Akashic Records. The Greeks spoke of the nous. Indigenous traditions called it the spirit world. Modern mystics refer to it as the quantum field or universal consciousness. Different names, same truth. There's a layer of reality that exists beyond the physical, and your consciousness has a built-in mechanism to access it. This mechanism isn't mystical in the supernatural sense. It's natural. It's part of your design. Just like you have eyes to perceive light and ears to perceive sound, you have an internal receptor that perceives information from beyond the five senses. That receptor is what we call intuition. But it's far more than a gut feeling. It's a sophisticated channel of communication between your individual awareness and the collective consciousness of all that is. When you have a sudden knowing about something you couldn't logically know, that's the channel. When you think of someone seconds before they contact you, that's the channel. When you feel pulled toward a choice that makes no rational sense but turns out to be exactly right. That's the channel. The problem is, you've been taught to override these signals, to trust logic over intuition, to believe only what can be proven, to dismiss anything that doesn't fit the materialist model of reality. And so, the channel remains hidden, not because it's secret, because you've been conditioned to ignore its existence, but some part of you never stopped sensing it. Some part of you always knew there was more. That's why you're here right now. That's why these words are resonating. Your consciousness recognizes the truth being spoken because it's been trying to tell you the same thing. The hidden channel is real, it's open, and you're about to remember how to use it. Chapter 2. The space between worlds. Reality is not singular, it's layered. There's the world you experience through your 5 senses. And then there's everything else. Between the physical reality you inhabit and the infinite field of consciousness that contains it, there are dimensions, frequencies, layers of existence operating simultaneously, interpenetrating each other like radio waves, occupying the same space without interfering. You exist in all of these layers at once. Your physical body anchors you in material reality, but your consciousness extends far beyond your body, reaching into realms that exist outside space and time as you understand them. The hidden channel is your access point to these other dimensions. It's the bridge between worlds, and learning to navigate it is learning to expand your awareness beyond the narrow bandwidth you've been taught is all that exists. Ancient traditions knew this. Their spiritual practices weren't about believing in invisible realms. They were about directly experiencing them, about training consciousness to perceive what lies beyond ordinary perception. They understood that between waking and sleeping, there's a threshold state. Between thought and silence, there's a gap. Between heartbeats, there's a space. And in these in-between places, the channel opens widest. This is why meditation works. Not because you're trying to empty your mind or achieve some perfect state of peace, but because in stillness, the noise of your thinking quiets enough for you to sense what's always been there beneath it. In that stillness, you begin to perceive the space between your thoughts. And in that space, there's a presence, an awareness that's watching the thoughts, an intelligence that exists independently of your mental activity. That presence is the real you, the consciousness that chose to have this human experience, the awareness that existed before this body and will exist after it. And it's directly connected to the source of all consciousness through the hidden channel. When you learn to rest in that space between thoughts, you're no longer limited to what your physical senses can perceive. You begin to receive information through the channel, images, knowings, sensations, intuitions that come from beyond your individual mind. This is how prophets received visions, how mystics accessed divine wisdom, how shamans traveled between worlds, how healers knew what was wrong with someone without diagnosis. They weren't special. They just knew how to consciously use the channel that everyone possesses. The space between worlds isn't somewhere else. It's right here, interpenetrating physical reality. You've been moving through it your entire life without recognizing it. Like a fish that doesn't know it's in water because water is all it's ever known. But the moment you become aware of it, everything shifts. You realize you're not just in the physical world. You're in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and the hidden channel allows you to consciously navigate between them. Chapter 3. Opening the Pathway. So how do you access this channel? How do you tune into frequencies you've been taught don't exist? It starts with understanding that the channel responds to your state of being, not your effort. You can't force it open. You can't think your way into it. You have to become the frequency that allows it to reveal itself. This is why most people never access it. They approach it with the same mindset they use for everything else. They try to figure it out, to control it, to make it happen through willpower and determination. But the hidden channel doesn't work that way. It opens through surrender, through stillness, through becoming receptive rather than forceful, through allowing rather than doing. Think of it like this. Your normal waking consciousness is like static on a radio, loud, chaotic, constantly broadcasting. The hidden channel is a subtle frequency that exists beneath that static. To hear it, you don't need to broadcast louder. You need to become quiet enough to perceive what's already there. This is the practice, learning to quiet the mental noise, not by suppressing thoughts, but by no longer identifying with them, by recognizing that you are the awareness observing thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. When you rest in that awareness, the channel naturally begins to open. You start receiving impressions, subtle knowings, feelings that carry information, images that appear in your mind's eye without you creating them. At first, you'll doubt these signals. Your rational mind will dismiss them as imagination or coincidence. This is normal. You've been trained to distrust this kind of knowing, to only believe what can be verified externally. But if you pay attention, you'll notice these intuitions are often accurate. That feeling about someone that turns out to be true, that impulse to take a different route that helps you avoid an accident, that sudden thought about someone right before they contact you. These aren't random. They're evidence that you're beginning to consciously receive information through the hidden channel. And the more you trust these signals, the stronger they become. There are practices that help open the channel more fully, meditation obviously, but also dream work, because the channel is most active when your conscious mind relaxes its grip during sleep. Spending time in nature away from the electromagnetic interference of technology, using breath work to alter your state of consciousness, working with sacred plants that temporarily shift perception to reveal other dimensions. But the most important practice is simply this. Pay attention to the space between things, the silence between sounds, the stillness between breaths, the pause between thoughts. That's where the channel lives. That's where the transmission is coming through. The more time you spend in that space, the more you realize it's not empty. It's full, alive, intelligent, and constantly communicating with you through subtle signals that your ordinary mind overlooks. This is how you open the pathway, not by seeking something external, but by becoming still enough to sense what's internal, what's always been there, what's been trying to reach you through the hidden channel your entire life. Chapter 4. What lies on the other side? Once you learn to access the hidden channel, once you develop the sensitivity to receive its transmissions, you discover something extraordinary. There's an intelligence on the other side, a consciousness that responds to you, that communicates with you, that's been waiting patiently for you to remember how to listen. Some call it God, some call it the universe, some call it higher self or source consciousness. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that it's real, it's interactive. and it has access to information your individual mind cannot possibly possess. This is where genuine intuition comes from, not from your subconscious processing information you've forgotten, but from a source of knowing that exists beyond your personal mind, that can see patterns you can't see, that exists outside of time, and can therefore perceive probable futures. When you ask a question into the hidden channel and receive an answer, that answer isn't coming from you, it's coming through you. Your consciousness is acting as a receiver, translating information from the field into language your mind can understand. This is how great insights arrive, how solutions appear seemingly from nowhere, how artists receive complete visions, how scientists have breakthrough realizations, how spiritual teachers access wisdom they didn't learn from books. They're channeling, whether they know it or not, whether they call it that or not. They've opened the pathway, and they're receiving information through it. But it's not just information that comes through the hidden channel. It's guidance, direction, support. There's a benevolent intelligence orchestrating synchronicities, arranging encounters, opening and closing doors to guide you toward your highest path. Most people experience this guidance as luck or coincidence. They don't realize they're being actively guided by something that can see the entire pattern of their life and is working to help them fulfill their purpose. When you become conscious of the channel, you can start actively collaborating with this guidance. You can ask questions and receive answers. You can request signs and they appear. You can surrender to the flow and watch as life arranges itself in ways that seem impossible. This isn't imagination. This isn't wishful thinking. This is how reality actually works when you're operating through the hidden channel. Synchronicities multiply, doors open, the right people appear, resources manifest, obstacles dissolve. Because on the other side of the channel is the creative intelligence that's orchestrating all of existence. And when you align with it, when you open yourself to receive its guidance, you're no longer operating alone with your limited individual mind. You're connected to something infinite, something that knows things you don't know, something that can see what you can't see, something that wants you to fulfill your potential and will help you do so if you let it. This is the promise of the hidden channel, not just access to information, but partnership with the very consciousness that's creating reality itself. Chapter 5. Living from the channel. Once you've discovered the hidden channel, once you've learned to access it and trust its guidance, the question becomes, how do you live from this place? Because knowing the channel exists is different from letting it guide your life. Most people get glimpses, moments of intuition they follow, synchronicities they notice. But then they return to living from their thinking mind, only remembering the channel when something dramatic happens. True mastery is learning to live from the channel continuously, to make it your primary mode of navigation instead of an occasional reference point. This means developing the trust to follow intuitive guidance even when it contradicts logic, even when you can't explain your choices to others, even when the path forward isn't clear, but something inside tells you to take the next step anyway. It means recognizing that your thinking mind is a tool, not your master. It's excellent at analyzing, planning, and executing. But it's not designed to lead. It doesn't have access to the larger pattern. It can only see a few moves ahead while the intelligence on the other side of the channel can see the entire game. Living from the channel requires surrendering control, not in the sense of becoming passive or abdicating responsibility, but in the sense of releasing your attachment to how things should unfold and allowing them to unfold how they're meant to. This is perhaps the most difficult part, because your conditioning tells you that if you're not controlling, forcing, making things happen, then nothing will happen. But the opposite is true. When you try to force outcomes, you interfere with the natural flow. When you surrender to guidance through the channel, life flows with far less resistance. You begin to notice a quality to actions taken from this place. They feel right, even when they're challenging. There's an ease beneath the effort, a sense that you're being carried by something larger than yourself. A knowing that even if you can't see the destination, the path will reveal itself step by step. And miraculous things start happening, not because you've gained magical powers, but because you're aligned with the creative force of reality itself. You're moving with the current instead of against it. You're collaborating with intelligence instead of trying to figure everything out alone. People notice. They can feel something different about you, a presence, a clarity, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. They're drawn to you without knowing why, because consciousness recognizes consciousness. And when someone is living from the hidden channel, it broadcasts a frequency that others can sense even if they can't name it. This is the invitation, not just to know about the hidden channel intellectually, but to live from it, to make it your primary way of navigating existence, to trust it more than you trust your thinking, to follow it even when it makes no sense. Because on the other side of that trust is a life beyond what you could have planned, beyond what you could have imagined, beyond what your limited individual mind could have created. On the other side is the life your soul came here to live, the path you were meant to walk, the purpose you were designed to fulfill. And the only way to get there is through the hidden channel. The hidden channel between worlds isn't a metaphor. It's not a poetic concept. It's a real pathway that exists within your consciousness, connecting you to dimensions of reality you've been taught to ignore. Throughout history, those who discovered this channel and learned to use it were called mystics, prophets, seers, shamans. They were both revered and feared because they had access to knowledge and abilities that seemed impossible. But they weren't different from you. They just remembered something you forgot. They developed something you've left dormant. They trusted something you've been taught to dismiss. The channel is there, right now, in this moment, broadcasting, waiting for you to tune in, waiting for you to become still enough, open enough, trusting enough to receive what it's been trying to tell you your entire life. You are more than your body. You are more than your thoughts. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused into this physical experience, but always connected to something infinite through the hidden channel. And when you remember this, when you reclaim access to this pathway, everything changes, not because you gain something new, but because you remember what you always were. The question isn't whether the channel exists. It does. The question isn't whether you can access it. You can. The only question is whether you will, whether you'll take the time to quiet your mind enough to sense it, whether you'll trust the subtle signals when they come, whether you'll follow the guidance even when it defies explanation, whether you'll live from this place instead of just visiting it occasionally. The pathway is open. It's always been open. You just needed to remember it was there. Welcome to the hidden channel. Welcome to the space between worlds. Welcome to the consciousness you've always been, but temporarily forgot. The transmission has been waiting for you. Now you know how to receive it. You know how to